In the Perspectrum podcast, we discuss controversial topics. Outside of this context, Michael and I are both working professionals. While doing this show, we are not acting as agents or representatives of our respective institutions, and none of the views that we express reflect the outlooks of our employers. So don't come to my office and throw toilet paper at me.
And I don't have an office, but don't come to my cube. Hello and welcome to the Perspectrum. I'm Michael Bloom.
And I'm Nathan Seelove.
Today we are diving into the details for this episode. Last week for our miscellaneous what the fuck, Nathan touched a little bit on all the shit that's going on with Jeffrey Epstein and the files there and stuff. We realized that we did not do that segment justice, so we're starting off by delving into the conspiracy theories surrounding Epstein and Trump. And then we're going to take a hard left turn and talk about ICE and the abolition thereof, and discuss like the pros and cons of abolishing ICE.
Bro, I'm so excited about this episode, and I will say, in the first segment, I am going to make a prediction that is probably going to make most of y'all call me a dumb fuck. All right?
Wow.
Michael will probably call me a dumb fuck. So feel free to call me a dumb fuck, but I'm going to make a prediction that might be completely wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and say it so that if I am right later, I can point to it and be like, told you all fuckers.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah, well, let's get into it because as I mentioned in last week's episode, I'm not that familiar with everything surrounding Epstein. Like, I've not been keeping up with it for the past few years. Like, obviously, since like even Trump's first like administration, this has been a thing. I've not really been paying attention to the news around this, like that's been dropping around this lately. So, this is something Nathan was like, we definitely have to talk about. And I was like, I don't know, man. Does it even matter? But we're going to get into it because apparently it does. And at the very least, I don't know. At the very least, it's kind of crazy and fun.
Yeah. This is one of the differences between Michael and me. Michael is a very, as you all have probably noticed, he's a very analytically minded person. And he doesn't like to get caught up in the weeds and the speculation of things. And for the most part, on most issues, I'm completely with him on that.
Yeah.
But on this has been yummy in my tummy for like the last, what has it been, like 6 years?
Well, that's great. Okay, I mean, it is quite an excellent combination. We've got, millionaires and billionaires, the ultra wealthy with shit on their face. We've got our, horrible person in chief getting dragged through the mud. It's like, I can see why there's some catharsis here. So let's do a little bit of background. So Jeffrey Epstein was a financier in New York, super rich. He was a millionaire, known for, and I think by the end, even a billionaire. He hung out a ton with celebrities and politicians, including people like Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and even Donald Trump. He owned like his own section of an island where he would invite people to come visit and likely participate in like illicit activities. And then he is a convicted sex offender, as well as he was charged with sex trafficking in 2019. So he was originally actually arrested in Palm Beach, Florida in 2005, which I was not aware of that he had a history like this. So 2005, he was accused of paying a 14-year-old girl for sex. And then dozens of other underage girls described similar sexual encounters and abuses with him. Ultimately, though, prosecutors in 2008 allowed him to plead guilty and gave him a plea deal that allowed him to just serve 13 months on a work release program. And so following that, he continued to participate in like being a financier, like rubbing shoulders with, important people. And then in 2019, federal prosecutors in New York charged him with sex trafficking. Then ultimately he died in jail awaiting trial.
Yeah. I think it's also important for us to spend some time going over the historical relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. Because the reason why this is all coming out right now is because earlier last week, the Justice Department comes out and says, hey, so there's no blackmail scheme. There's no Jeffrey Epstein list. And he definitely died by suicide. Okay, so nothing to see here. We're good. Move on. And predictably, the Barbara Streisand effect happened. And what people were like, I mean, people have always been talking about the Epstein stuff. I mean, you know, it's always kind of been in the back of a lot of people's minds. It's started to come to the forefront for just a little bit when Elon Musk comes out there and tweets that the reason why Donald Trump hasn't released the Epstein files is because he's in the Epstein files. But even that kind of slowly dissipated. So it was kind of strange that the Justice Department just randomly decided out of the blue, we're just going to come out here and say there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, especially because like earlier in February, Attorney General Pam Bondi had said that the like quote like client list was sitting on her desk awaiting review. She had herself, and let's be clear, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, these are members of the Trump administration, as well as now like FBI director and deputy director, who have all in the past talked a ton about the Epstein conspiracy, sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, all that stuff. And then when Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, started to help the FBI, the schism started to develop between the Justice Department, led by Pam Bondi, who kept kind of pushing for the release of files, and the FBI saying there wasn't really files. And then most recently, to Nathan's point, they came out together saying that there was really nothing to see here. Now, all that to say, I want to keep a skeptical hat on throughout this. To me, these are all fucking buffoons. And so the fact that there's a bunch of buffoonery shouldn't surprise anyone. On the other hand, people think that looks pretty suspicious.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of shit that looks pretty fucking suspicious. And the thing is, the more they try to hide it, the more suspicious it looks. So Pam Bondi actually directly said in a Fox News interview, when she was asked about the Epstein files, she said, I have them on my desk. Mm-hmm. She said that. Now, later, the press secretary tried to clarify, oh, no, what she actually meant was she had all of the files related to, the Epstein case on her desk ready to review. That's what she meant. Not necessarily that there was a client list, but that's what the question clearly was about. You can go back and watch it. That's what the question was clearly about. They said that there was a client list. And the thing is, right now, the line that Trump keeps saying, because apparently his administration just doesn't they don't communicate with each other. The line that he keeps saying is not there's no client list, which is what was the official thing that the Department of Justice and the FBI said. It's not that there's no client list. It's that the client list was created by Obama and Biden and the Democrats. Those are two contradictory things. Either A, there is no client list, or B, there is a client list, and it was created by Obama and Biden or whatever. Which, by the way, Obama wasn't even president. You know who was president when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested? Let's see, it happened in 2019. Oh yeah, who was president? Donald Trump. Donald fucking Trump. Clearly there's a client list, all right? I mean, I know Michael is saying he's trying to be skeptical. There's a fucking client list, all right?
I mean, okay, so I'm remaining skeptical for this particular reason. I fundamentally reject the idea that the lack of evidence is therefore proof of a particular outcome. So the fact that no one has produced the client list, or that they have said that there's no incriminating client list, he probably had a list of associates, clients, a Rolodex, all of this stuff, sure. But people refer to the client list as this basically a dossier. I think this is my interpretation of how people are talking about it. It's a dossier of essentially blackmail on people important people who are his like clients and their activities, illicit activities in conspiracy theories, derived from like these huge networks of surveillance equipment that Epstein has established in his various residences and stuff. And so like the thing is, I don't actually have a proactive contention. I just don't see, the only thing I see here is like, circumstantial evidence, which is still evidence, right? Circumstantial evidence and strategically missing evidence.
So I see Trump saying that there's a list. Why would he say, oh, the list is just created by Democrats? Why would he say that if there wasn't an actual list?
Because
he could just
he
say
blames
there's no
everything
list.
controversial on Democrats. So that's what I'm saying is like, I agree, but like I'm approaching this as certainly with their political reaction with an Occam's razor approach, which is like,
which to me, Occam's razor. Okay. I would actually say,
Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice what can be adequately explained with stupidity. Sorry,
because I was actually
razor.
about to say let me talk about Occam's razor here.
Okay.
Because here is what Occam's razor is to me.
Sure.
Donald Trump is a guy who has been who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein.
Totally.
Best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 10 years. Jeffrey Epstein actually in an interview with Michael Wolff confirmed that they had been that he had been his closest friend for 10 years.
Sure.
All right. This is a guy who actually didn't have to pay to get into Mar-a-Lago back when they were neighbors. He didn't have to pay. He was just allowed to come over at any time.
Yeah.
This is a guy, Donald Trump is a guy who said, quote, about Jeffrey Epstein, quote, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. Totally. Many of them are on the younger side. All right?
Totally. And there's even an example of like a 17-year-old who was working at Mar-a-Lago who Jeffrey Epstein took a fancy to. This is all alleged by her, which is, in like court filings and stuff. Took a fancy to, hired, and then, kind of coerced into sexual acts and stuff as well. So like, yeah, I the evidence is clear that there's like a relationship here. And I'm not saying that there's no list of clients or whatever. Like, I'm just saying, and also, it hasn't been produced.
And also, let's remember, Donald Trump is an admitted sexual predator.
Totally. Well, I think this is a key thing.
Let's not forget about the grab him by the pussy comment.
Yep.
Saying like you don't even like they let you do it. I don't even ask. I just grab him by the pussy.
Yep. That's
sexual assault. And in a 2006 interview on Howard Stern, at one point, Stern was talking to him and he said, quote, Donald, seriously, you know about sexual predators and things like that. You are one. To which Trump responded, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And yeah, admitted and found liable for sexual assault, right? We've got like, he was liable for that. There's plenty of accounts of him also like walking into Miss Universe pageant dressing rooms and like, and actually, and so I think I totally like believe all of that, which is the definition of like circumstantial evidence. Again, it's not that it's not evidence. It's just that it is evidence based on circumstances. But I also, and so like, again, I'm not making a positive claim about something being true, but also like, I'm curious about what people think why people think this would be a problem for Trump, or like why we think that he's already said and admitted and been found liable for like the worst shit someone can do. So like, I'm not totally sure exactly again, it's not that I don't care. I just don't know what it gets us.
So here's a few things that you need to understand, Michael.
Yeah.
This story has been as much a part of the identity of the right-wing internet culture as Donald Trump himself has been. Ever since Jeffrey Epstein, supposedly committed suicide in prison, This has been a defining thing for the right-wing ecosystem. They have been obsessing over this.
That's
now, the
so
reason
true.
why they've been obsessing over this is because, because Bill Clinton is also definitely on the list, and plenty of other Democrats and other elitists are definitely on that list. And for some reason, well, I mean, not for some reason, because, they worship at the altar of Trump. They never put together like, oh, well, Trump was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 10 years. Trump is an admitted sexual predator. Trump has been, there are plenty of pictures of Trump and Epstein.
Yeah.
There are videos of Trump and Epstein having fun at parties. They never put together like, oh, well, maybe the reason why this was never released is because he's fucking on them.
Yeah.
And also, let's not forget that Fox News segment that, by the way, I just like to point out, Fox News edited this answer initially, where they were like, hey, would you release the JFK files? And he said, yes. Will you release the 9/11 files? Yes. Will you release the Epstein files? And he was like,
we'll see.
Yeah, he was like, like first he said, yeah, I would. And then they edited out the part where he said, actually, maybe that one less so, because there's a lot of fake stuff on that. There's a lot of fake stuff. And again, he was president. He used to be president. This was when he was campaigning, but he used to be president.
Yeah.
If there are files, he knows that there are files. If there are no files, if there is no list, why wouldn't he just say there's no list? There's, because it already looks incriminating to him. It already looks incriminating to him. So the reason why I would say that this matters is because this has been a right-wing obsession. And also, I would like to point something else out. The reason why Trump has gotten away with so many of his fucking crimes, or at least why, the right-wing cult that follows him has not cared about it, is because he's done it all in the open.
Yes.
Like he's just been committing crimes willy-nilly out in the open. Like, yeah, I did that, who the fuck cares? What makes this different is that he's not doing it in the open. All right.
Yeah.
That makes it juicy. That makes this a juicy piece of a juicy scandal. All right.
Yeah.
And because of that specifically, because it is something that he is trying to prevent the release of, there are cracks in the right-wing ecosystem. There was a poll that came out that showed that 17% of Americans disapprove of his handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. 17%. When it comes to any question about Trump's handling of anything, you never get as low as 17%. All right? You never do. Because there is a certain portion of the country, probably about like 35 to 40% of the country, that will just hear, do you approve of Trump's handling of blank? And they'll just say yes. It's like, oh, I didn't finish the answer. No, yes, I approve of it.
Totally.
I approve of it. All right.
Yeah.
He is my cult leader. He is my holy cult leader. I approve of it. But 17% of Americans approve of his handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. You are seeing cracks. You are seeing Candace Owens coming out there and basically saying, I can't reconcile the Donald Trump that I know with the one that's gaslighting the American people, which, side note, seriously, you're surprised that Donald Trump is gaslighting the American people? The guy that used a fucking Sharpie to alter a weather map because he couldn't just come out there and admit that he accidentally got something wrong a little bit earlier when he talked about how the path of a hurricane. He couldn't just admit that. He altered it with a Sharpie. You can't believe that this guy is gaslighting.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, better late than never, I guess. The reason why this is different is because, number one, this has been a defining thing for the right-wing online ecosystem. Number two, it is something that he is trying to hide. And the more he tries to hide it, the more you start seeing cracks in the MAGA armor.
Totally. Okay, yeah, so totally. So that I agree with completely. And I think that is important, that it is entirely separate from the facts of the matter in a way that I think is excellent. So to your point, 69% of Americans, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll, suspect some kind of cover-up related to this Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And dude, I totally agree with you. I literally have in my notes written down MAGA world has two obsessions: Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein's ring of pedophile sex traffickers. And I think I like completely agree with you. It actually, this is why like I think it's been really interesting that people have been pulled into the debate. People on the left seem to be pulled into the debate about like the nature of the conspiracy theory, and like it is tempting to be pulled into like was he a spy and part of like Mossad, or like was he murdered? And my thinking is like I actually care way more about the fact that one of the pillars of the cohesion on the right is starting to shake. To your point, like when Mike Johnson fucking comes out and like actually counters the Trump administration, saying that, quote, we should put everything out there and let the people decide. And that's just him. Like the people now inside Trump's orbit, in like the DOJ and the FBI are like now getting in line, but that has just not been true across like right-wing influencers, including people like Laura Loomer, who's like, exercised a lot of influence over the Trump administration, including like enticing them to fire people, but also like been willing to criticize them as well. So it really is like this. It's like one of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein are like the sacred cows. And like to your point, I think that people on the far right have always been able to discount or hand wave the stuff about Donald Trump's other improprieties. Oh, it's locker room talk. Or like, oh, that's a motivated prosecution. They're just doing that to keep him from being president. But because it's bumping up against a sacred cow, something that they have built a pillar of belief upon, now all of a sudden they've got like cognitive dissonance. And that's where there's like cracks, and that's where there's, I think, an opening. And to your point, like people care way more about blood in the water than like the fucking carcass, right? If it's just a carcass, they don't care, but they fucking smell something here that they can get into that's juicy, to use your word.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, there have been some right-wing influencers who have been trying to fall in line or trying to find copes, like
Laura Ingraham.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've heard is people are trying to put this specifically on Pam Bondi. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, she's trying to undermine Trump. She's trying to undermine Trump. Trump said that he would release it, and she's the one who's trying to protect all these pedophiles. Yeah. And it's like, no, you idiots. He told her to do it. He clearly told her to do it. And
And I think because like she was clearly acting of her own volition when she's saying it's on her desk and she's demanding its release. And like I feel like there's a lot that people who pay attention to this have already seen that goes counter to that. I'm not getting the impression that people believe it.
And then you have Charlie Kirk coming out there, charred turkey, and saying, you know what? I'm just going to stop talking about this, and I'm just going to trust my friends in the government. It's like, dude, what the fuck kind of conspiracy theorist are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he literally said, I'm going to trust my friends in the government. Like, I mean, but the thing is, that is not going to fly with the greater base. As we've been seeing from the polling data so far. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to. Then Trump is coming out there and basically saying, if you're still talking about this, if you care about this, like you're an idiot and I don't want your support anymore. It's like, dude, you're talking about more than half your base. Yeah. You're literally just saying, I want, like,
yeah, he's
you're
literally attacking.
Just saying fuck you to half of the people that voted for you.
Yeah, it's true. It's his instincts have been all wrong here, and I think that's really important.
That right there is where the crux of my prediction is going to begin.
Interesting.
And like I said, Michael, you can call me a fucking idiot. Listeners, y'all can think I'm a fucking idiot for saying this. But I'm going to go ahead and make this prediction now. And it could be totally wrong, could be totally off. This takes down Trump. this takes down Trump. Now, here is why I'm saying that. Number one, as we already talked about, it's the secrecy of it that is allowing his supporters, that is basically like bringing his supporters in and, causing them to question it more. If he was just out in the open, like, yeah, I'm a pedophile, I like underage girl. Like, if he was out in the open saying that, there would be a portion of most of them probably wouldn't give a shit. The fact that it's the conspiracy aspect of it is what's pulling people in. Number two, you are seeing the fracture already. People that have been lifelong supporters of him, that have stayed silent for everything, even stuff that, even times where he's actually violated campaign promises. Mm-hmm. All right. People that used to say, like, this guy's a right-wing populist, he would never touch Medicaid. Then he signs a bill that touches Medicaid, and they're like, chirp, 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 crickets, crickets, crickets. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
They don't care about the fact that, 30 women have accused him of sexual assault. That's all in the open. The fact that this is not in the open is what draws them into it. Because of that, I do think that there is going to be a portion of his base that will continue to be cultists, that will continue to support him. But the conspiracy wing of his base is just too fascinated with Epstein.
Yeah.
And what I will say is that he is never going to release that list by himself. He's never going to. It's just not going to happen. But if it does get released, because, again, he's not going to be the one to do it. If it does get released, and then, it shows that he is on that list, that is going to turn his base against him, because he's not the one that released it. Because it had to come out in a different way. It had to come out in a different
actually
medium.
a scandal.
Because it's actually a scandal.
Yeah.
All right. It's only a scandal if he tries to prevent it from coming out.
Yeah.
All right. I actually think that if he just came out there and admitted to everything, a lot of his supporters would just not care. But if it comes out, that's going to turn his base against him. And that is going to that right there is going to give Republicans in Congress, who are going to want to distance themselves as much as possible. Well, the ones that are left, because I'm sure plenty of them are on the list too. And, their careers are going to end, which good. That's going to give them permission to actually vote for impeachment. And I think that is going to be the crux. Now, again, he has survived a lot of shit, so a lot of you are probably thinking, Nathan, you're naive. But this particular thing, you don't understand how obsessed the right wing is with Epstein. You don't understand it.
Yeah.
So this is the rift. This is what sinks him. And if his presidency ends before his his 4 years are up, this is going to be what sinks him. And I think that, and I think it will. I actually honestly think that it will.
That's interesting. I feel like I can see where you're coming from, and I can see a couple of sides. Like, on the one side, like, this is a whole segment of his base that, like, are dedicated to this thing, and we talked through like how important this is to the conspiracy theorist wing. And then on top of that, he's violated, to your point, his other promises that I think portions of his base really do care about. Like, the fact that that some people voted for him because, like, he's an anti-war populist or whatever, and then he goes and fucking bombs Iran. And, like, the fact that certain people voted for him, maybe these are not his, like, core base, but certain people voted for him because he was going to lower prices and, like, bring jobs back and stuff, and he's not going to do that. And so, like, I think there is structure being taken away from his support from a number of different fronts. And I think this is, like, a key one. So I could see an argument for, like, this being kind of the bale of straw that breaks the camel's back. At the same time, I do have just this, like, bad taste from predictions like that in the past, and that's not actual evidence. That, to your point, that's not evidence. I know you're aware of it. Like, the fact that on the other side of January 6th, it was just a matter of time, and I think that is where I think a matter of time is where this thing could ultimately run out of steam. To your point,
but
like I think
January 6th happened in the open.
I get what you're saying. But like, and there was also plausible deniability, right? Trump was able to say to the people that trusted him, like, I didn't try to get them to do that. They have very reasonable concerns, but I'm not out there trying to overthrow the government. So like, I think I think you're right. There's some significant differences. The thing is, like, I think this takes him down if there is to your point, like an actual release of something that is conclusive and gets people's attention and is like incriminating and all this stuff. I think, and is done illicitly. I think like if that doesn't happen, I think this runs out of steam. So I guess ultimately that does bring us back to the factual question of whether we think there is a list or not. So the thing that I dismissed towards the beginning, which was why does it really matter if there's actually a list, could, in my own analysis, could ultimately be the thing that matters the most to whether this becomes like politically intolerable.
Here's what I would say. If there wasn't a list, why wouldn't Trump have said that from the beginning? You know, he would have said that from the beginning. Why would Pam Bondi have said the list is on my desk? Why would, like, I mean, again, and then when they come out and say that there is no list after having previously said that there was a list, why wouldn't Trump just be like, yeah, there's no list? Why would he try to poison the waters by saying, oh, well, anything you do see, it is definitely it's the Democrats. If you see anything at all, it's totally the Democrats. There's no reason why he would try to poison the water. Trump might be a fucking idiot, but there are some things that he is good at. There are some things that he's actually fairly smart with. And that's one of them. Like trying to control his base, reading what his base wants to hear. That's one of them. So the thing is, you would have to be a fucking, first off, to release the thing in the first place, to release the whole like, oh, you know, there's no, the statement of, oh, there actually is no list. There actually is no, nothing to see here. The release of that in the first place was fucking idiotic to begin with. Mm-hmm. Like he had to have known that would make things suspicious, which is why I would go back to what I said last week, which is that I think that somebody, probably Elon Musk, has something.
Sure.
Has something. And what Trump was trying to do was he was trying to get ahead of it. He was relying on his base's loyalty to him to try to, poison the waters initially, come out there and say that there's nothing. But then when they didn't accept that, he was like, oh, fuck. Well, I guess I'm just going to try to say it's the Democrats because, when it does come out, like maybe they won't believe it.
Sure.
But that's not satisfactory to them either.
I totally get that. And like a couple points. One is I think kind of counter to what I was saying earlier, the fact of whether there is an incriminating document here probably really does matter for the politics of the situation. To your point, I think like you're right that I think that could be the nail in the coffin. And I kind of don't think there will be a nail in the coffin unless something like that does come out. Yeah. But I do want to just thread the needle here just a little bit because like I think it matters because I think like conspiracy theories by definition expand. And so like I just want to be like precise in my own kind of framing here, which is like, again, I'm not saying that there definitely isn't something because there's no evidence that there definitely isn't something. I'm also not saying that I definitely know what it is because I don't. And like a lot of the evidence here is that there might be something. But the fact that there might be something does not provide a lot of evidence for what exactly that thing might be. And so because there is the potential for there to be something, it could be a lot of things aside from a list of a bunch of names with like, here's a hyperlink to all of the videos of Donald Trump fucking a kid, and like, and so like, and the thing is you could come up with counterfactuals ad infinitum about what those things could be, right? It could be a list of all of the people that Epstein took advantage of in his Ponzi scheme, and Donald Trump is embarrassed to have lost millions of dollars to a person that cheated him. You know, like, you could imagine a lot of things. And again, I'm not saying any of those are more credible than a list of client names. I'm just saying that a list of client names is not necessarily more credible than any other thing.
True, but what I would say is that if we're not, if we're going to say, okay, well, maybe we're not 100%.
Sure.
Maybe we're not 100% that there's definitely an incriminating list or incriminating documents that the FBI has or the DOJ has that would tie Trump to illicit activity in terms of, like, if we're going to say that we don't know 100%, then I think it is okay to default to, well, okay, what's the simplest explanation? Occam's razor, all right? And I would say Occam's razor would say admitted sexual predator.
Sure.
Friend with Epstein for 10 years.
Sure.
Keeps trying to get people to stop talking about Epstein. Keeps saying, keeps trying to prevent any information from being released. I mean,
yeah, and his administration released a video with a minute missing of Epstein.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, even beyond whether or not he's on, even beyond the thing that he's on the list. I mean, I would say I think him being on the list is a given.
Sure.
It's a whole nother question as to, like, what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, because I've always maintained I don't think that he killed himself, and I always thought that it was probably possible that Trump was involved, considering the fact that he was president at the time. Now that Trump came out and said this, suddenly I'm thinking, oh no, yeah, it was definitely him. It was definitely him. Okay, I shouldn't say definitely. I would say 95%. I would say I'm 95.
If it's
I'm 99. I'm 99.9% sure.
Yeah.
That it wasn't suicide, and I'm 95% sure that it was Trump.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Actually, no, 90%. I'm gonna say 90%.
I love that you're like going back and forth on a 5% on this.
Hey, a lot can happen in 5%.
That's so true. Let me ask you this.
But 90%.
If that were true, why not Ghislaine Maxwell?
Why wouldn't
why wouldn't she already have been dead? She has a lot of information. She's connected to all this stuff. She was present all the time. Like, she would be presumably as able to speak to these things in the case of being a witness as Jeffrey Epstein.
So, a few reasons.
This is so fun. This is so not.
Yeah, this is never. We're actually arguing. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few reasons. Because I was actually thinking about that, but I would say a few reasons. I don't know if you knew this, but he was actually apparently behind closed doors considering pardoning her.
Okay.
During his first term.
Another option for Jeffrey Epstein that would have worked. Oh wait, no, because it was. Oh yeah, because it was a federal case. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a federal case. Yeah, he was considering pardoning her, which tells me that there was some communication going on between them. Number two, I think that she probably got the message with Epstein.
But he could have pardoned Epstein.
Like, it was too much. And the thing is, he didn't pardon Maxwell because he was told, if you do that, your career is done. Like, people are gonna riot in the fucking streets. Don't do that. So he didn't do that. But what I would say is that Maxwell probably knew, oh shit, I'm in danger now. Message received. I'm not gonna say anything. All right. I'm not gonna say anything. Number two, it would look too fucking suspicious. Epstein dies by suicide in a cell. Okay, maybe some people can believe that. Most people don't believe it. But then Epstein and Maxwell, people like, even the normies that haven't been, even the normies like you that haven't really been paying, that weren't paying attention to this.
Sure.
Like, even a normie like you who is fairly skeptical would see that and be like, oh, what the hell's going on here?
Except 69% of the American population already thinks there's a cover-up.
They think there's a cover-up, but they're not,
sure.
But they're not sure of the details.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, it's they think there's a cover-up. At that point, it would be riots in the street. It would be so obvious at that point. And again, I think message received. I think she was probably thinking message received. I'm gonna be careful about what I do, what I say. And that's probably what Trump was thinking. Or it was literally just a case of, we got away with it once. I don't think we can get away with it again. It's going to be too risky to try it again. Hopefully the message is received and she'll stay quiet.
I agree that all of these could be possible explanations. I just
also
think that
let's
it's, you know, I think of this, Nathan. I think of the counter argument against God being that I believe there's a little green alien on my shoulder, which is just as plausible.
Well,
and so I'm saying, like, every time we come up with another one that is similarly plausible, that fits all the pattern, it is less credit to what any given conclusion might be, because there's a lot of ways to map to that particular outcome.
But wouldn't you argue that same conclusion, like the same whole, like, you know, we don't have 100% evidence on this, also applies to whether or not Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. I don't have an opinion because I don't know that we have. Now, the official information is X, but that's why that's the phrasing. You know, it's like the coroner found that he killed himself.
And there is some fucky things with with forensic analysis, but I didn't pull that up as much. But one thing that I did pull up, one thing that I did spend a lot of time looking at, is so the video that they posted that actually shows the outside of Epstein's cell, or at least like an area that is around that's close to the entrance of it. Number one, apparently there was actually an obstructed part of it, but number two, as a lot of people noticed, there was a missing minute.
Sure.
Where it
and
just
that
skipped
seems
ahead.
Very suspicious.
Yeah, there was a missing minute, and it was originally presented as raw footage, but Wired magazine actually did an analysis of the raw data files.
Yeah, the metadata.
Or of the metadata rather, and they found that it had actually been edited several times in Adobe Premiere. It had been edited several times. And not only
so
that...
you're saying Microsoft did it.
Microsoft. And not only that, but the first... Like, basically it was two clips that were spliced together. And one clip, the first clip, had almost 3 minutes completely taken off of it. So it's not even just that 1 minute's missing. Apparently 3 total minutes are missing.
Wow.
And it was edited several times. Like, the video itself was edited several times. They came out there and they say, oh, this is the raw footage.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's not the raw footage. It's the edited footage. You edited it. Someone edited it and they pretended it was raw footage. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying 100%. I said 99.9% in terms of whether or not it was, it was murder. So I'm not saying 100%. What I'm saying is that 99.9%, I would say, is Occam's razor looking at all of this shit and saying, this is a guy who was involved in sex trafficking for multiple celebrities, multiple elites, multiple politicians. And you're telling me that right before he was about to go on trial, he just dies in a cell. He has all of this dirt. Like, and that's, whether or not there's a specific list or what the list is, like, that's, you can say that that's debatable, but whether or not he himself had dirt, that's not debatable. He absolutely had dirt on politicians. He had dirt on celebrities. He had all of that shit. And you're telling me that this guy just happened to drop dead, just happened to fucking decide to commit suicide? Like, I mean, Occam's razor, I would say, would clearly would clearly indicate, no, this dude was murdered. People in power would have been taken down by this guy having a prolonged trial in which all of his crimes were out there in the open. Like, this dude was totally murdered. And Trump was president at the time. Trump would have had the means to do it. He sure as shit would have had the motive. I think he's the most likely suspect. But then again, there's a lot of potential suspects, which is why I said 90%. The other 10% being all the other fucking elites.
I'm really starting to not get your percentages. I like how Occam's razor, which is the simplest solution, is likely the true one, gets you to 99%, which is clearly like a 51% kind of razor. And that there's tons of celebrities who are implicated, as well as people in positions of power, and according to some, maybe the Israeli government, and yet you're 90% sure that it's definitely Trump because he was president at the time.
Okay, I will say I did more research on the Israeli connection, and I do agree with you that it seemed a little bit too speculative. Not saying it's not true, but like as I was going through it, I was like, okay, this is too tinfoil hat for me.
Yeah, I feel like a lot could be true here. It is painfully apparent that people are not being forthright about the situation here, like that there is clearly stuff being there's likely stuff being like hidden, and there's literal evidence of them tampering with what they claim to be raw footage. To me, that is the most incriminating piece of literally all of this, because it is a direct lie with confirmable evidence. So like I think there's some hinky shit going on here, and that like ideally really good evidence would come out that would like bring the thing to a conclusion. The skeptic in me leads me to conclude that I don't, from what I've seen, there's not enough evidence for any singular conclusion to all of these questions, but a lot of really good questions.
So now it's time for one of our more lighthearted segments, Tips for Good. So, Michael, why do we do Tips for Good every week?
Well, Nathan, I'm so glad you asked. It's because over the hills and far away, Teletubbies come to play.
Oh, God.
1, 2, 3, 4. Ha 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 ha. Teletubbies. Time for Teletubbies.
Bro, you're not going to get me to say that Teletubbies make the world a better place. If that's where that was going, if that's what you were trying to...
Wow, anti-Teletubby. Yeah. A lot of hot takes on this episode so far. So Nathan, if it's not Teletubbies, what does make the world a better place?
Tips for Good does. So maybe we should just do that.
That's a good idea. Let's just do a tip for good. So Nathan, what is our tip for good this week?
Our tip for good this week is something that is completely and utterly unrelated to politics. Let's talk about dogs for a second.
Oh, I love dogs.
Yeah, I love dogs. Michael loves dogs. Lots of people love dogs. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some processes that you should try to follow when petting a strange dog. I mean, first off, for any strange dog that you see, like if you're in the park and someone's walking their dog, like you should always ask to pet them, because it might be a vicious dog or whatnot. But assuming that you've gotten permission to pet the dog, many dogs have different levels of comfort around various people. So when you're meeting a dog for the first time, there are some things that people do automatically that can actually make a dog feel threatened. For example, going for their head to try to pet their head.
Yeah.
Dogs oftentimes don't like that. Coming at it from the top, bringing your hand up kind of from the top rather than kind of lowering it from the bottom can make them feel threatened. Standing over them can also make them afraid. So the best process for meeting a new dog is actually to stand a little bit to the side, like don't be standing right in front of them. Stand a little bit to the side. Yeah, not squared off on them. A little bit to the side, and then bend down, and then take your hand and start moving it over, and focus on petting the back first. All right. Now, to be clear, this might not be something that you need for all dogs. Some dogs are just playful and loving, and they're not going to care where you pet them. But this is a good practice to get into the habit of, just in case there is a dog that might be that might be threatened. Not when I say threatened, I don't necessarily mean that they might get vicious at you, but they might be afraid of you.
Yeah.
Especially a rescue dog. So it really is going to help your relationship with dogs if you try to follow that procedure when you meet new dogs.
I love it. And dogs make the world a better place.
They absolutely do.
And that's Tips for Good. Okay, so now that we've solved the Epstein conspiracy, let's tackle another topic that's easy and has a simple solution. ICE.
Yeah.
So if you have been living under a rock, ICE has been in the news a lot recently, and we should talk about why. One of the reasons is that they are now the highest funded law enforcement agency as of the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill Act. They have been allocated $170 billion for immigration enforcement and border security efforts, including $75 billion in extra money for ICE, which makes it the highest funded law enforcement agency. This will go towards ICE detention facilities, arrests and deportations, as well as building walls and barriers on the Mexico border. And so Congress has just given them like more money than the militaries of many countries. And at the same time, Trump has escalated the, proactive seeking out and deportation of migrants and immigrants, and especially undocumented folks, to almost unprecedented levels. His administration is targeting a 3,000 immigration arrest quota per day. And so this combination has led to this controversial organization being superpowered and overpowered. And so we got to talk about, its background, where it comes from, and really think about whether it even makes sense to have this particular organization even exist in the United States.
Well, Michael, I mean, you can't possibly be suggesting that we abolish ICE. I mean, doesn't it have a long and rich history throughout the United States?
Wow.
I mean, I feel like an organization like this, I mean, it must date back to, I don't know, at least the Jefferson administration, right? Right? It's something like that, right?
You ignorant slut. ICE is pretty fucking recent, my friend. So following 9/11, the Homeland Security Act merged parts of the Immigration and Naturalization Services with Customs into ICE, right? And so Congress transferred a bunch of functionality from our Immigration and Naturalization Services to 3 new agencies within the Department of Homeland Security. So ICE, Customs and Border Patrol or Protection, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS. So they literally took Customs, enforcing imports and levies and stuff like that, and Immigration and Naturalization, and they're like, hey, what if we made a domestic defense force and we militarized the fuck out of this thing? We called it ICE, and now we have a overpowered militaristic immigration and immigration enforcement agency.
Yeah.
And that's how we got ICE less than 30 years ago.
Remember, the entire argument behind it is we need a specialized force to deal with immigrants that might pose a threat to our national security.
Yeah.
That might be violent criminals.
Yeah.
Now,
it was specifically implemented after 9/11 as part of Homeland Security to have this kind of defensive, anti-terrorist, anti-crime action.
Now, Michael and I have brought this up before, but I'm just gonna bring it up again. Undocumented immigrants commit crimes at a lower rate than natural-born citizens. According to a National Institute of Justice analysis of arrest rates in Texas between the years of 2012 and 2018, they found that in the most recent data gathered in 2018, overall offending rates based on citizenship showed that natural-born citizens committed crimes at about 1,100 per 100,000 people. Documented immigrants committed crimes at a rate of about 800 per 100,000 people, and undocumented immigrants committed crimes at the lowest rate of all of them at about 400 per 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about violent crime rates for citizens, for U.S. born citizens, it was about 225 per 100,000 people. For documented immigrants, it was about 175, and for undocumented immigrants, it was about 100. So in each case, consistently, undocumented immigrants were actually committing crimes, both violent and nonviolent, at a lower rate than U.S.-born citizens.
Yeah. And this has been borne out in all of the data that's coming out of the ICE enforcement that's been taking place under the Trump administration as well. So the Cato Institute, which is a right-wing think tank, even called out that this assertion that ICE is going after criminals and terrorists is BS. So as of June 14th, ICE had booked into detention 204,000 individuals since October 2024, which was the start of the fiscal year 2025. Of those booked in, 65% had no criminal convictions whatsoever. And more than 93% of the people ICE booked in were never convicted of any violent offenses at all. And about 9 in 10 had no convictions for violence or even property offenses. And most, 53%, most of the convictions, 53% of the convictions, fell into either an immigration conviction, a traffic conviction, or a nonviolent vice-related crime. So these are overwhelmingly non-criminals. And that makes sense because ICE is now, has been depending on decades-old misdemeanors as grounds for arrest in order to try to claim that a lot of these people are immigrants. So they will literally even arrest long-time U.S. residents in order to try to fill these quota numbers. Because the thing is, the other thing is if you're just sweeping up undocumented immigrants, you will get the vast majority of them, to Nathan's point, will be nonviolent, not criminals, and have been here for years. 60% of undocumented immigrants have spent at least 10 years here, and 33% live with at least one U.S. citizen child. So these are, by definition, not criminals, nonviolent, long-time residents with fucking U.S. citizen kids. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are probably going to try to make the argument that, well, the fact that they're illegal immigrants in the first place, that means that they're automatically criminals. That right there, boom, they're criminals. But the entire argument that they've been making about why it is so important to round up undocumented immigrants is because of the potential threat that they pose to national security. That was the original idea behind the founding of ICE to begin with, the idea that these people were potentially violent. But they're just not. You can't just dismiss the whole, you can't say that these people have no criminal records. They committed the crime of going across the border illegally. Well, that's not a violent crime. And you said that is what you cared about. You said that's why you cared about this issue. Trump even came out and said, we're only rounding up the violent ones, the criminals, the worst of the worst, the rapists, the murderers. That's who we're targeting. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, in fact, under the current system, under the current leadership of ICE, they've actually had to stop going after the worst of the worst because the Trump administration has imposed a quota of 3,000 arrests per day. And there have actually, and there was a New York Post article that was citing several people who are actually agents of ICE that chose to remain anonymous for obvious reasons because they're basically whistleblowing on their bosses, where they said that the fact that it is impossible for them to fulfill those quotas and to actually go after the potentially dangerous people.
Yeah.
That to go after the actual dangerous people
takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes days of tracking them down, days of creating a plan for how they might raid their house. It takes days to figure that shit out. And they might get only one arrest.
Yeah.
But it's a big arrest.
Yeah.
It's a big arrest of someone who actually might mean us harm.
Totally. The only way you reach those quotas is by picking up people that aren't expecting to be picked up. Is like people that are not evading you.
Yeah. Which Stephen Miller specifically told them, go to Home Depot.
Yeah.
Wait in Home Depot parking lots.
Yes.
So the fact of the matter is, what they are doing is actually, like, the system of what they're doing is actually focused on ruining as many lives of people that are not violent, that are not criminals, at the expense of not going after the actual criminals.
Yes, totally. And that is the continuation of a longer trend, right? So even when it comes to criminals, quote unquote, the deportation of people as the result of criminal activity up until like the 1980s, for most crimes, that was not the remedy. Like that just wasn't the use. Generally speaking, you would only be deported for crimes if they were crimes of, quote, moral turpitude, drug trafficking, or some kind of automatic weapons offense. It was not the practice for minor crimes, misdemeanors, like things like that, to deport people. And then between the 1980s and 1996, Congress expanded the range of offenses that could be grounds for deportation, specifically to demagogue and be able to like pull more people into this group of like, quote, criminals that could be deported. As well, at the same time, Congress criminalized immigration-related offenses. So when people say like, oh, well, those are the crimes, that was like developed in the 1980s and 90s. They as well as like criminalizing offenses for people that aid immigrants in kind of evading our immigration procedures. So essentially, like, and that's intuitive, right? Because I find it to be such a stupid distinction when people are like, oh, well, the crime is immigration. It's like, it's not any crime. Fucking, going too fast and losing your license could be a felony. Like, it's not about any crime. It's about like crimes that make our society like specifically worse. And to Nathan's point, the people that are doing those things are evading the law and not getting picked up by this. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, even the original intention behind ICE, which again, as we've pointed out, based on the statistics, is a false premise to begin with. The premise is immigrants need a specialized force undocumented immigrants need a specialized force to take care of them because they're significantly more likely to be violent criminals. It's a false premise. The entire premise behind which they were founded is a false premise. But even under that premise, right now, they're failing to do that. They're not even doing that. Like, they're not even going after the small number of people that actually are potentially that do potentially mean our society harm, that actually are societally bad for us, as to Michael's point. And to make matters even worse, it hasn't just been instances of going after undocumented immigrants. There's also been plenty of cases in which they've gone after documented immigrants.
Yeah.
We need to, let's talk about Mahmoud Khalil for a sec. This is a guy who is a green card holder. He was organizing pro-Palestinian protests on the Columbia campus, and he was arrested for that and detained for almost 100 days. He was taken away from his pregnant wife, who was a citizen, by the way, while he was incarcerated, again, for free speech, while he was arrested, he missed the birth of his child. He fucking missed the birth of his child. Now, a judge recently ordered that he be released, and so he has been released, but the government is still trying to appeal that. Meanwhile, he's countersuing them for $20 million, or he's actually said, I'll settle for just an apology because this is fucking wrong. And you know what? I hope he does sue them. I hope he sues their balls off. because he was kidnapped.
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
kidnapped.
Yep.
All right. On top of that, we are seeing ICE agents take people off the street without due process, shave their heads, put them on an airplane to a torture prison in El Salvador.
Yeah.
It is not, at this point, I don't think it is unreasonable to make the historical comparisons between ICE right now as they are operating, masked agents who are taking people off the street, not always identifying themselves as law enforcement, by the way, taking people off the street without due process, shaving their fucking heads and then sending them to a torture prison.
Yeah.
Or the fact that they just opened up a goddamn camp in Florida, Alligator Alcatraz, which honestly, like let's call it what it is. This is a concentration camp. This is totally a fucking concentration camp. And I don't think it's unreasonable to look at the historical parallels between this and the fucking Gestapo. You know, maybe it hasn't reached the extreme levels of Nazi Germany yet. Thank God it hasn't. But Nazi Germany also took a while to reach that level.
Yeah, exactly.
It took massive efforts, massive propaganda efforts to dehumanize the people that they were detaining. It took massive propaganda efforts.
Yeah.
Also, let's not forget, a lot of you might be saying, well, hold on, Nathan. Isn't there a rule that states that as soon as you bring up Hitler in a conversation, you've lost the argument? Yeah, the guy that came up with that rule? That came up with that rule to begin with? That coined the term? He actually, during Trump's campaign, this time around, actually came out and said, yeah, no, the Hitler comparisons are warranted.
Sure. Yeah.
The guy that specifically said, if you bring up Hitler, you've lost the argument. He said that those comparisons are actually warranted. You have professors who are experts in fascism, experts in authoritarian history that are now fleeing the country and going to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just me making this comparison. Totally. These are experts in the field who are making this comparison, who are noticing the parallels.
Yeah.
We're seeing these agents like literally take over the streets of Los Angeles. I mean, this is dark shit. They're operating as Trump's personal secret police, going after not just undocumented immigrants, but people he doesn't like.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing. On top of that, they are putting out this propaganda. Because it's not just propaganda about immigrants, which they've been demagoguing for years, but it's also propaganda about ICE and the increased militarization thereof, and like the increased use of introduction of military into our communities, like we saw in LA. So the Department of Homeland Security put out on a fucking .gov website a fucking propaganda piece talking about how, there's been an 830% increase in assault on ICE officers from January to July, which they are clearly using. And if you look at the pictures, it's like they've got a scratch or two on them. And I don't want to minimize actual assault, but come on. And they are clearly using this as a justification for, one, ICE officers wearing masks, and two, bringing military force, like they did with the National Guard, into our streets. And let's just dispense with the fucking mask and not identifying yourself thing, because we have seen it has been a practice of ICE officers wearing masks, showing up in plain clothes, and not identifying themselves. And this increases danger for both the ICE officers as well as the public. So there is no justification for doing that except for our government attempting to cast ICE officers as the noble victims that are just trying to get out there to do it. It's literally propaganda. So Hans Menos, who's a vice president at the Center for Policing Equity, he said, quote, "Let's think about an area like Philadelphia or Texas, where the average gun ownership rate is maybe higher than the rest of the country. And the unidentified masked man wants to snatch somebody off the street, and someone wants to intervene because they think something illegal is happening." As just an example. Another example is police in Pasadena, California, believe that they have one case of a man who hopped out of an unmarked vehicle and pointed a gun at a pedestrian last month. And they don't know who he is. They haven't been able to track him down, but they think that he's an ICE officer, but they have no way of confirming that. And meanwhile, people have been arrested and charged with impersonating immigration agents across the U.S. for months because it's now easy to do that. You walk up in plain clothes, you say you're from ICE, and you can literally kidnap whomever the fuck you want.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, Michael and I have consistently been anti-violence as a form of protest. I would like to point out the fact that if some masked person, like if I'm out walking somewhere and a masked person starts like trying to grab someone, a masked person in plain clothes starts trying to grab someone and tries to throw them into a van, doesn't identify themselves as law enforcement, doesn't give their badge number, doesn't do any of that shit, I'm going to fucking intervene.
Totally.
I'm going to do something.
That's not protest. And that's like being a good Samaritan.
That's self-defense.
Yeah.
That's being a good Samaritan at that point.
Yeah.
So like if you're going to put your officers in situations like that where it's not clear if they're actual officers, you can't then say, "Oh, well, they're being assaulted. They're being assaulted by these people." They're not being like in that case, in a case like that, it's not assault. It's people thinking, "Oh my God, I need to try to prevent this fucking kidnapping that is happening."
Yeah.
Because that's what these ICE officers are doing. They're kidnapping people.
Yeah, totally.
When you take people off the street without due process, that's kidnapping.
Yeah. And again, this militarized domestic force, right, is also with impunity, like detaining and manhandling members of other branches of government. Yeah. So we have one case where, a Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge is now facing federal criminal charges because she's alleged to have helped a man who was present in her courtroom for a misdemeanor offense escape when immigration agents showed up. So, like, we have just a judge who is being, charged with a crime that it's like we'll see how it all like comes out, but like seems like a pretty motivated charge to me. But obviously we'll see. And then we've got like the example of like Brad Lander, who's the NYC comptroller, and he was a mayoral candidate at the time. He was arrested while visiting an immigration court, which is something that he does regularly. He volunteers to walk people to and from immigration court to intervene if ICE shows up, which they're not supposed to be doing. And then we got Senator Alex Padilla. He was forcibly removed from a Department of Homeland Security press briefing or press conference in LA when he tried to ask a question. He's a fucking Democratic senator who is just like picked up and taken out of the room. Then we've got LaMonica MacGyver, who is indicted for allegedly interfering with an immigration officers at an ICE facility where she was present with two other members of Congress. She's a member of Congress, present with two other members of Congress, exercising her oversight duties. She was there on official fucking business. And then we've got the New Jersey Newark mayor who was arrested or picked up by ICE officers outside of an ICE facility. And like, again, like ICE is like terrorism, immigration enforcement. Like they shouldn't be arresting citizens. That's not how it fucking works. Call the fucking police if you want. Like call the local police. It's their fucking jurisdiction. And that's the kind of thing. They are disregarding procedure, process, due process, constitutional rights, civil rights, because they think they can get away with it, and they're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this brings us to what the fuck do we do about this? And honestly, I think that the least extreme version of what needs to happen is just we abolish ICE. The least extreme version. Because the thing is, number one, we have seen from this administration that allowing the executive branch to have an agency with almost no oversight, with that's basically just militarized, that is militarized to this extent, that is allowed to operate with impunity, is just too much power to give one person.
Yes.
It is just too much power to give one person. All right. Number two, the original premise behind ICE, again, as we talked about, is a flawed premise.
Yes.
Now, are there immigrants that might potentially do us harm? Yeah.
That's
are there
what
potentially
the fucking FBI is for?
Yeah, that's what the FBI is for.
Yeah, or
All right?
local law enforcement, like we have it.
You don't need a specialized group like
for
the only
immigrant
reason why,
crime.
Yeah, the only reason why you would need a specialized group for a specific group of people is if that group is uniquely committing certain crimes, committing certain dangerous crimes, and they are not. They are just not. All right. This is something that should be left up to the FBI or to local law enforcement, depending on the severity of it. You don't need a specialized force specifically targeting immigrants for this.
Dude, just the way you phrased that. We have a law enforcement agency to target a specific group of people. Not people in a specific place, not people doing a specific thing, not a specific kind of crime. It's just literally a specific group of people, and we have a specialized law enforcement agency just to go after them.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. And that's the thing. We can abolish ICE without abolishing Customs and Border Protection, right? Customs is important. Without abolishing U.S. citizenship and immigration services. This is literally just the militarized, like, enforcement wing that really just has no functional place in our society.
And if you have someone who is an immigrant or an undocumented immigrant or whatnot, who is the actual crime lord that, people seem to think every undocumented immigrant is, where you actually do need to go raid some compound that has a bunch of henchmen or whatnot, the FBI can fucking do it. They got the weapons to do that.
Yeah, we have so many law enforcement agencies already. Local police, state police, like Marshal Service, like FBI.
Yeah.
Like, we have it already.
Yeah. So honestly, the least extreme version of what needs to happen, I would argue the right-wing version of what needs to happen, is we just abolish ICE. But I would argue that there are steps further that need to be taken here. Because considering all of the laws that these people who are part of this organization have been breaking along the way, have been breaking willy-nilly, and have continued to be a part of ICE, despite the fact that they are regularly ordered to do things that are just straight up illegal, I think they need to be blacklisted from law enforcement. All right? These people need to be, if you are in ICE and you are willingly following orders that violate people's civil rights, that violate the law, that knowingly you are knowingly violating the law, you should not be in law enforcement. You should not be allowed in law enforcement.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would actually call that the moderate position. I call that the centrist position. The left-wing position is abolish ICE, blacklist officers, and then go through case by case and find with a fine-tooth comb and be like, all right, so which of these officers were complicit in committing crimes?
Yeah.
All right. Which of these officers knowingly kidnapped a person off the street, like, assaulted them or anything where they were commanded to do something that was clearly a violation of the law? Obviously we wouldn't want to uniformly charge an entire organization. You do it by a case-by-case basis. And there might be some of them that didn't commit crimes. Okay, fine. Perfect. But for those that did, they should be criminally charged. They should absolutely be criminally charged if they committed crimes.
Yeah, which is not that shouldn't be a radical position.
That shouldn't be a radical position.
Be charged for a crime.
Yeah.
And now it's time for one of our favorite segments, Ass Hat of the Week. So Nathan, who is our ass hat this week?
Michael, oh my God, we actually had to change this a little bit before recording, because this is just beyond the pale. This is beyond the pale of ass hat, and we had to bring this up. It is Fox News host Greg Gutfeld.
Ooh, Greggy Guts, come on down.
Yeah.
Okay, Nathan, so what did Greggy Guts do to get on our show?
So, Michael, you know how any reasonable human being would hear the label of Nazi and want to run away from that 100 miles an hour because, Nazis are bad?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Greggy Guts has an alternative view. He believes that it is time for the right to reclaim the word Nazi.
Oh.
The same way, and he actually makes an interesting comparison that he is taking inspiration on for this idea. So he said, quote, "This is why the criticism doesn't matter to us when you call us Nazis. Nazi this, Nazi that. You know what? I'm beginning to think they don't like us. You know what? I've said this before. We need to learn from the blacks. The way they were able to remove the power from the N-word by using it. So from now on, it's, what up, my Nazi? Hey, what up, my Nazi? Hey, what's hanging, my Nazi?"
Fuck. Jesus Christ.
So, Greg, I don't know. I'm stunned that I have to explain this to you, but the reason why black people had to reclaim the N-word is because they were an oppressed minority who had suffered years and years of oppression in the United States. The Nazis were never an oppressed minority. They were the ones oppressing a minority.
Yep. You wouldn't think you had to say that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, dude, the reason why you can reclaim a word by using it is when it's not a blameworthy or negative thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a black person.
Exactly.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with being a black person. The N-word was used as a word to try to make it seem like, there was something inherently flawed or inherently wrong with just being born with darker skin. There is something inherently wrong with being a Nazi, though. There's absolutely something wrong with being a Nazi.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's pretty fucked up. It's kind of like a quintessential archetypical example of something that's really fucked up. That's interesting that he missed that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know what? You know what I'm going to say? You know what? Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Call yourselves Nazis. See how that works out for you.
I think they should. They've earned it.
Yeah. See how that works out for you. See how many see if this catches on. All right. See how many people are watching you saying, "Yeah, we're Nazis." Like, see how many people watch that and think, "You know what? I should start calling myself that." And how many people are just like, "Oh my God, holy shit. He just called himself a Nazi. I guess the right is a bunch of fun." Like, go ahead. You know what? Do it. Do it. All right. Try to call yourself a Nazi. Call your fellow right wingers a Nazi. See how that fucking works out for you.
Well, congratulations to Greggy Guts for being this week's Ass Hat of the Week. So now we'll end our show as we usually do with our highlights. So Nathan, what's your highlight this week?
This is going to sound super sad, but I'm sure any of y'all who are listening that are parents will probably understand this.
Okay.
I got a great night's sleep last night.
Oh.
And I have not gotten a really good night's sleep in a really long time. Like, I've gotten a reasonable night's sleep. I've gotten a night's sleep where I was able to mostly function. This whole week has been really tough in terms of sleeping. But last night I got a beautiful night's sleep. I slept for, the baby stayed, was put down and stayed down, and I got 9.5 hours of sleep, and it was beautiful. And I felt so good this morning.
Congrats, dude. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That's great.
What about, a little sad, but what about you, Mike's? What's your highlight?
Mine's perspective. Bree and I are about to go on a trip up to Alaska for a few days, so that'll be super fun. We're going to be traveling around, hiking, and all that stuff, so I'm looking forward to getting up there.
Cool.
So now we'll thank the amazing people that make this show possible. Thank you to our patrons, Jerry DeViller, Taylor Bloom, Fade Out Scoop, Kyle Chaska, and Tobias Janssen. And thank you to our amazing editor, for Kayla, for all they do to make this show possible. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to The Perspectrum. And you'll hear from us again.